And we're starting out tonight talking about the change of scenery, the new digs of sorts. Sorry, Riley. We're talking about the new digs of sorts that these players that have been shifting. We might not remember all of the moves that have been taking place over the offseason. It's been a long offseason. So we're gonna recap some of them. We're gonna talk about fantasy values. We're gonna talk about what's going on with some of these players and how they affect each other's value over the course of this NFL season. So make sure you stay tuned because, I mean, top to bottom, this is going to be the best coverage you'll have of NFL, whether it's fantasy, whether it's betting, whether it's just breaking down the games. You're not going to have a better home for football than right here on the ActionLab Sports channel, on Twitch, anywhere else. So make sure you tune in, hit that follow button if you're not already. Man, I should be a promoter. Damn, I'm good.
I feel like I plugged our shop earlier pretty well. We could both just... Ooh. I mean, Chris, you didn't even mention the fact that we're unemployed means we're going to be just grinding away on these rankings week to week.
Dude.
We got nothing else?
We're going to be updating these rankings. We're going to have fun with it. Oh, no.
Check us out on Grindr. What's happening here, Chris?
Because we have some sort of... We have some guest What is this? What do we got? What do we got here, Rec?
Who's trying to get in here?
Rec's trying to
get out.
Okay, bye.
Get out. Oh, was that Doc?
It is me.
Hey, Doc, how are you?
Good. How we doing?
Did you just join to get rid of my face?
No.
Yes.
Making sure that Rec doesn't show his.
That's important too.
So wait.
How are you? Come from mine.
What do you got? What's up, Doc?
Nothing. Just coming in to see what you got going on.
Oh, okay. All right. I love it. You want to talk sports with us?
Yeah, I can.
Hold on. Let me restructure this then. Let me restructure this a little bit because we got Doc now. Doc.
Good news is that is my good side.
Yeah.
Do you have a good side?
Oh. Now we got
wild coming from you, Breck. Wild. That's not me.
Hold on.
I'm handsome now. Look at me.
You're already handsome enough. Let me have a little bit, please, Scotty.
Hold on. Now we gotta wait. Hold on. I gotta get all this reconfigured now.
Boy.
You didn't have to show me.
Boy.
Everything is potato-y.
Now we know why.
This is part of production crew, ladies and gentlemen. You're seeing how the sausage is made is basically what's happening here. Oof.
And the sausage looks great. Oh, here we are. Whoa! A lot of crazy things happening.
You're going behind the curtain here, ladies and gentlemen, with how the sausage is made. The fact that I could do this on the fly is incredible, by the way.
You are a guru.
Yeah. I will put that on your resume.
I'm gonna have to. I'm gonna have to.
Not the resume.
All right. So let me go ahead. Let's get this situated.
Now we move the fancy focus back.
I mean, as long as we don't bring Rex face in, I think we're fine. I think we're safe. Everyone can report on Facebook. They're safe. Is that still a thing? Is that something that happens? Do people use Facebook?
Not
still?
safe for Rick.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay. Just want to make sure.
All right. I think we're good. We'll just roll with this. All right, let's do it. Ladies and gentlemen, we are talking NFL fantasy focus. All the teams that have changed, all the players that have changed teams that we are going to discuss tonight. Now, it's like I said, it's been a long offseason, so there's going to be a lot going on with, where players have gone, what they're going to be as far as the impact on a new team, good or bad, so on and so forth. So that being said, let's dive into it. And top to bottom, some of the bigger names we'll go through: quarterbacks, running backs, receivers, things along those lines. But one of the biggest changes, let's talk about Kirk Cousins a little bit.
Kirky.
He
looks good in black.
He looks good, right? Now,
focus.
Atlanta Falcons joins the most invested offense in the league. Like this, can you imagine a team that has a first-round quarterback as a backup, a first-round running back on the roster, a first-round wide receiver in Drake London? Oh, by the way, Bijan Robinson was the running back. A first-round tight end in Kyle Pitts.
Well, I think you're underselling it. They're all top 10 picks.
Yeah. It's crazy. 3 first-round offensive linemen. The other 2 were 2 second-round offensive players. I mean, like.
So, welcome to this. Is going to be the best offense in the NFL, right?
Congratulations. Right. I mean, the fact that I mean the Falcons, they were drafted to win this league, right? This division, I should say.
This league.
I mean, so naturally, with this dominant offense, they hired a great mastermind offensive mind as head coach, right?
No.
Right?
They hired a defensive guy that has not been a head coach in a long time.
That's what he was trying. That's what he was trying to say, Rick.
Thank you, Doc. I mean, come on. Yeah, Raheem Morris.
Yeah,
all this draft capital invested in your offense, and I like Raheem Morris actually, probably more than most. I think he was done dirty and like in Tampa and stuff. I think he has potential, but if I'm Atlanta, you got with all the capital you have in offense, you get an offensive mind in there as the head coach to replace the ineptitude that they had before that. So I'm trying to look who's their offense. I'm actually because I don't know.
Zach
Robinson. I actually know. I've met Zach Robinson.
You're gonna have to back up.
Worked for the Rams. Went to Oklahoma State, right? He was Oklahoma State quarterback. Get some affiliation to Colorado. So I had some buddies that went to school with him actually. Not that I don't know him well by any means. But is he some sort of mastermind? I don't know. We'll see. But he's got that's a hell of a lineup to have in front of you to pursue like having offensive greatness, because you got Bijan Robinson, who second year should be phenomenal. Like Kyle Pitts, we all know has like this unlimited potential they don't use. Drake London's a stud, in my opinion. Doesn't maybe not like a 500 ball guy, if nothing else. Like, and then you got Kirk Cousins, who, as we dive into this, Chris, I think Kirk is. I not as a fantasy guy. I think as a quarterback, he's underrated, and people hate on him because he hasn't had a lot of playoff success or team success. But like, I don't know where I view him. I think he's pretty down in fantasy wise, but like as a quarterback in the league, he's definitely fantasy wise. He's 18th
going into this season. Fantasy Pros has him at 18.
Yeah, I think real life, remove the fantasy because obviously he doesn't run. So yeah, that's going to drop him. He's definitely, for me, probably somewhere in that like 10 to 13 range as far as quarterbacks in the league.
Right. I mean, you take a look at this, and you know, if you look at his stats from last year, when he went down, he was actually QB8 in terms of fantasy points, and was actually top in the league in a lot of the metrics. And they have him for this year, Scotty. You tell me what you think, but they have him for about 4,000 yards, 28 touchdowns to 10 interceptions. And if you take a look at him last year before he went down, his interception to touchdown ratio was 18-5. So statistically, he was on pace to have probably his best year. Would you agree?
I mean, they weren't winning games early on, but he was playing well. They were losing in spite of him, frankly. I mean, I remember that early on, that like Chargers game, which was wild, where it like went back and forth, and they ended up losing. I think. I think Kirk Cousins is a good option. I think they might be underselling him on the. Obviously, it's a new team, so maybe there's like some acclimation period there. But he's a vet. He's a pro. He's changed teams before. Obviously, he started in Washington, went to Minnesota. If nothing else, we should give Kirk Cousins props for being one of the single greatest businessmen in the history of football. Dude's getting paid as if, I mean, like he's the quarterback in the league, and he's done everything. Like, congrats to him. But then he still dresses like he's shopping at Old Navy. So
he's got to work on
he's saving that
fit.
up. He's saving that up.
He's got to work on the
saving
fit.
it up.
So,
but he's spending all the money on those chains.
Maybe, but Kirk Cousins is a fantasy guy, Chris. I would say, I mean, there's just so many options, like running wise, in front of him now.
I'm looking at Drake London. Drake London is one of the most hyped players on fantasy, like people's minds, right? Like Drake London, he gets a infusion of. I mean, they were so bad with Desmond Ridder. I mean, Desmond Ridder was not accurate. He wasn't able to connect in the red zone on anything. You add in a guy that like understands the game and has been playing at a decently high level as long as he has, and it's like Michael Penix. You don't have to worry about like not targeting these young guys that first round picks because they were like banished to like just not getting touches. But Bijan, Drake London, I mean Kyle Pitts, you might want to be keeping an eye on him for like any kind of a tight end. I hate to say that because I've vested a lot of fantasy rosters into Kyle Pitts and it's just shit on me.
Right.
But right. I feel like everyone's stock seems to it's gonna be rising with Kirk Cousins, at least for the short term when it comes to these other players on this team.
Well, yeah, I mean, you take a look at it and you look at like you just said it, you spoke about Ridder. So this year they actually have Drake London as wide receiver 12 in the average draft position. They have him projected for 200 fantasy points, 88 receptions, 1,150 yards, and 7 touchdowns, which I think that could potentially go up higher depending on the overall success of the offense, how good Bijan is, and how much Kyle Pitts takes away. But I think that this is somebody, or a team, I should say, that you should keep an eye on just for the simple fact of how drastically improved their quarterback is for that offense, regardless of who the coordinator is.
Yeah. Another player that shifted teams. We had Derrick Henry going to the Ravens. Derrick Henry to the Ravens, in case you forgot. Which, by the way, I kind of like him on the Ravens. Titans had a terrible offensive line. Not anything that he was able to like really get behind. Ravens running backs, by the way, when it came to what they were able to do with their running game, averaged a league-leading 4.8 yards per carry. They were number 1 in yards before contact. Henry was 30th with the Titans. That's got to be better. Like, I mean, Derrick Henry on the Ravens, from a fantasy perspective, oof. Between Lamar and the option with I love it, man. Like, am I tripping and not like?
I mean, if Derrick Henry's Derrick Henry of old, and that offensive line continues to, I mean, they were able to run the ball with Joe Schmo. Obviously,
Gus Edwards had 13 touchdowns last year.
Gus Edwards, because
he had 13
what's
touchdowns.
Dobbins can't ever stay healthy. So Derrick Henry should be a monster in that offense. Now, I will caution a little bit here. 1, Derrick Henry is getting up there. 2, I think the success Baltimore had on the field last year is probably we're going to see a regression there where they're not always in the lead. Their offense is going to be asked to maybe throw the ball a little more in situations. They had like a dream regular season last year with a quarterback that I think is wildly overrated, as I've said on this stream a million times. So I mean, I'm, as a Chiefs fan, I hate that Derrick Henry's there because like the potential there is enormous. He doesn't catch the ball a lot, so as a fantasy option, if you're in a PPR league, maybe you drop him some. But like in that offense, and he's the main back, and he's getting carries and looks, and they're winning games, like he's certainly top 10, probably closer to like 7 or 8, frankly. In that situation, I'm trying to think who I put. You put like McCaffrey. I put Bijan. Saquon and Philly's gonna be interesting. Breece Hall, I would put above him. Yes, Breece Hall is a stud.
Yeah.
I put JT. I think that offense will, with the Richardson will be dangerous. The problem is like some of these guys, like JT, are you gonna get stolen? Just like Saquon and Philly, like you have touchdowns at your disposal, but your quarterback runs it in instead. Like that hurts a little bit. But Lamar can do that too, obviously. So I mean the running back situation is. I mean, after you get past McCaffrey, like you could argue 2 through 10 who's going to be next. Like, so I'm not a guy that's going to value running backs high early unless you can get McCaffrey or something like that because no one else is a guarantee.
Hey, Phil Connors, let's go. What's up, Phil?
What's up, Phil? Thank you.
Who's your team and where you're from? Like to get to know you a little bit better. So Derrick Henry, and by the way, Saquon went to the Eagles. Derrick Henry and Saquon Barkley are both like kind of going in like, at least I was looking at some of the draft kind of boards of where they're currently being ranked and drafted, because now we're starting to get into all those numbers, right? Derrick Henry and Saquon are both in like that mid 20s to early 30 range, which means if you're in that end of the first round going and snaking around to like second to third, you might have a chance to go Derrick Henry, Saquon and have two really good players in two different situations that I think could be super interesting. Obviously, Saquon Barkley went to the Eagles, and obviously the Giants were terrible offensively last year, and Saquon going to an Eagles team loaded with talent.
That their quarterback runs in touchdowns from short yardage.
Correct.
Yeah.
And that's devastating. I don't actually know. I like Saquon Barkley a ton. I don't love paying for running backs. And I especially don't like paying for running backs when you have a quarterback that can run short yardage for you.
It does.
So I don't know why the Eagles did what they did. This isn't a shot at Saquon. I like Saquon a lot in his game, and he'll probably have a great year in Philly. But to pay $12 million for Saquon, who's been a little injury prone and probably a little past his prime now, on a team that like has a running back at quarterback at times, in short yardage,
at the goal line for sure,
or any short yardage situation. And I know obviously
they're taking
they
away
lost
the
their
tush
best
push
player
too. Right?
They lost their best player, so no, they're not taking away the tush push.
It's
there.
They still stuck with it.
Tush push is. Tush push is legal.
Oh
no,
and it should be.
Help. I just can't help but think that they kind of brought him a little bit too, maybe to help Jalen out a little bit to get him to not be taking so much damage, because we've seen it year in and year out with him with his rushing. There's just too many hits that he's taking, as is common with scrambling, running quarterbacks. We've seen it throughout the history of the NFL. I do think that I agree with what Scotty said. It's just going to be interesting to see these teams that have running quarterbacks, how much it affects these workhorse running backs that we're accustomed to seeing get the ball 200, 300 times in a season. You know what I mean? So it'll be interesting to see for sure.
But Saquon is just so versatile. Like he's so you can do everything with him. So I think they're gonna try to mix it up with him a little bit more, right? Like they have to. You don't want to put your quarterback in danger by him, running too much with the ball. And Saquon is a workhorse style back, which don't exist too much in the NFL anymore. They're kind of like split carries, this and that. So it'll be interesting to see how the Philadelphia Eagles end up working him in. By the way, let me get to the chat. We'll move on to a couple other players that have shifted teams. Milwaukee's winners our draft. It's we're still a little ways away. We're still going to get through. I think once we get through a couple preseason games, I think we're going to start getting into drafting. So we're still a little ways away. Tickle is asking the same question. By the way, we do an NFL fantasy football draft or fantasy football league. We did 2 of them last year. We're going to do maybe a couple this year, depending on who's interested. So make sure if you guys are here, you have to hit the follow button. You have to join us in our Discord if you want to be a part of it. All of the lab rats that are curious, jump in. Make sure you join our league. It's a lot of fun. I know this. We're gonna get this out of the way because it's gonna take too much time, and I don't want to spend too much time on it. but we do got Russell Wilson and Justin Fields going to the Steelers. That was another move that we shifted to this offseason, where you downgraded 2 quarterbacks and you upgraded a little bit. You know what's crazy? It's crazy to think that the Steelers upgraded at quarterback and they're still probably only going to go 9-8. But hey, you know, you upgraded.
Don't laugh. There's 2 Steelers fans right here.
I know. I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
No.
But before we get it, I will say, I'm not gonna lie. With the Arthur Smith move, with some of the moves, I feel like they're gonna get a little bit more out of Russell Wilson and Justin Fields, than I feel like they got. I will give you this: Russ had 26 touchdowns and 8 interceptions, and was fantasy QB 13. Want to know who was 12? Patrick Mahomes was number 12 fantasy wise. No. He was 0.3.
Look at Scott.
He was 0.3 better. Now this is just fantasy. Obviously we know Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback and best NFL football player in the league, but fantasy wise, Russ was right there with him, quarterback 13 and quarterback 12. So if he was able to do that, I do want to
throw this out there.
Wait, real quick. If he was able to do that with a coach that didn't believe in him, how about a coach that does believe in him? So maybe they'll help him.
Chris, the amount of fantasy regression that Russell Wilson will have this year is insane. Oh, and this has nothing to do with what you said about Mahomes. Don't care. He just won Super Bowls.
Well, it's fantasy.
Russell Wilson.
It's different.
Throwing for 26 touchdowns. He probably led them to 28 touchdowns. He threw for 26 of them. That's not repeatable. He was wildly let's go to the year before. How many touchdown passes did he have the year prior in Denver? Probably like 12. Like, the dude can't move the ball down the field. He's bad at quarterback. The fact that he had 26 touchdowns is insanely over projected to where he should have been based off the amount of times they were in the red zone. Like, not even close how wild of a stat that is. So draft Russell Wilson if you just hate yourself in fantasy. If you hate yourself, draft Russell Wilson.
So let me ask you this, Scotty. Over under 19 pass touchdowns this year for him.
Well, I mean, he had 26 last year, but
you said there's regression. So.
Hey, Sarah.
Thank you, Sarah.
Welcome in.
Sarah, I think, was the one that put in our Discord that picture of Joe Burrow losing all his swagger this year, maybe on purpose. I don't know.
Yeah.
Over 19. The question is like, if he's bad, well, actually, I don't know. Because Tomlin sticks with guys, right? Tomlin doesn't move off guys. Because he might be bad for 8 weeks, but he might still play throughout. Because a lot of half of this, maybe I would say over half of the Steelers nation as fans probably want Justin Fields to start over Russell Wilson.
I can tell you that's a fact.
Yeah,
that's a fact.
But that's not a reality. That's not going to happen.
It's more exciting, and we're never going to get it. Like.
You never know.
I mean, we could get it. He's gonna be bad. It's hard to project. That's a fascinating question, honestly, because I don't know how to project how many games he's gonna play because he's gonna be bad.
Yeah,
but like you can be. I mean, if he plays 17, if he starts 17 games, he's gonna have over 19 touchdowns. Like that's as a quarterback, that's almost impossible not to do.
Well, it is the Steelers.
Yeah, but I'll go let you know this.
I mean, your wide receiver core is a little weaker this year.
Yeah, I could agree with that.
Yeah, but if Tomlin has his way, Russell Wilson's starting every game. Like they don't want Fields to play this year at all.
Well, he is the head coach, so he should have his way if he wants it.
Yeah. I mean, well, things could happen. Like maybe it just gets so bad that he's forced to make a move, or like maybe an injury unfortunately happens.
He could get hurt.
Yeah, like there's still unfortunate things, but the Steelers and Tomlin hope that Russell Wilson plays all 17 games.
But Russell did like 26 because Did he miss action last year? I can't even remember now.
Yeah. He got benched for the last 2 games.
Yeah,
last 2 games he didn't play.
So
he didn't play all the way through.
And he was still just 0.3 points worse than Mahomes.
With a coach that didn't believe it. With a coach that
which is crazy because he
went
10 and he had 10 touchdowns to 4 INTs down the stretch before they pulled him, by the way.
Yeah.
3 came in 1 game at Houston.
Chris's team Russ. Far from it. I'm just being devil's advocate here.
Mahomes actually has some guys that will catch.
Here's the thing: we're literally living in fantasy land where it's like, you know, you're drafting Lamar Jackson as a top QB when, you know, in reality he's not the best quarterback to throw the ball in the league, but like he gets you fantasy points. Fantasy league, it's different, you know. It's a little...
I know I'm going off on a different tangent real quick here, Chris, but we have 3 of you here, so I want to know all your opinion.
First of all, Milwaukee's is crazy in the chat.
How frustrating is it to watch the Chiefs last year and know that this was like clearly the best opportunity you had to take him out? Like,
it was.
He didn't have guys who could catch the ball. No one wanted to catch the ball on that team.
I know you're gonna
and then they still won a Super Bowl.
I know you're gonna call me a hater, but what made it frustrating is like the Chiefs even in the playoffs, they did not really look good. Like their success was all dependent on one man, and it was Kelsey. Pretty much, if Kelsey wasn't doing anything, the Chiefs imploded.
That's
like in the first half of the second half of the Ravens game. The second half of the
Ravens game, they didn't need anything. They didn't need to score.
Yeah, because the Ravens were too busy tripping over themselves.
Okay, and the Chiefs ended at the Ravens 15-yard line at the end of the game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Like to MVS, to MVS.
But yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like you had one play in the second half and you won. That's exactly what I'm saying. Like you did not play well, but honestly, you kind of won the Steelers' way, just kind of waiting for teams to trip over themselves. And
this is what, and I will say as a Chiefs fan, and it's great, right? But it is infuriating. The Chiefs don't often slam the door shut. They let people hang around, and they only do as much as they need to at times to win. So, they scored 2 touchdowns on their first 2 drives of that game against Baltimore, where they didn't play.
Yeah, and then the field goal.
And then they didn't need it. Mahomes just chills for a bit. He's he chills. He's like, what? But the moment he fucking needs it, Mahomes, the offense didn't look great against San Fran, right? There were obviously some issues,
especially in the first half.
The offense, by the way, looked great against Buffalo, and we should have beat Buffalo by more. Everyone was like, "Oh, Buffalo missed a field goal." Yeah. Let's not forget McCole Hardman on a 1st and goal from the 3 fumbled at the 1-yard line through the end zone. That game should have been done at that point. We dominated in negative degree weather against Miami.
Against a team that doesn't know how to handle the cold.
All right, we're not talking about old shit. We're talking about players who switch teams here.
I'll move off it.
I've just been enjoying this, Chris. I'm just sitting here.
I mean,
that was a perfect code yellow for me.
Ultimate, and yes, it is the ultimate hater comment when you're like, "Oh, your team won the Super Bowl but didn't even play well." What the fuck does that mean?
I mean, it doesn't. Yeah, I know it doesn't matter.
What does that mean?
That was the infuriating part.
So does that just mean we should roll everyone this year? Is that what you're saying? We won the Super Bowl, and you're like, you guys didn't even play well. You didn't play well. You just happened to win the Super Bowl. You just happened to be the best team in the league.
Yeah, what I was saying for that.
I love Doc. Doc's just chilling.
Yeah. This is
what made it infuriating. It's like, yeah, you won. Did you win? Yes. Whether did you deserve to win? It doesn't matter at this point. It does not matter at all if you did or not. But that's just what made it infuriating.
Let's talk to a guy that clearly knew he couldn't win with the Bills, so he got traded to an up-and-coming team on the decline of his career.
That too. By the way, Milwaukee's is still talking about all the weapons that the Packers have. Watch out for the big red dog. This is real. By the way, it's in the chat. Watch out for the big red dog if Love doesn't sign.
Milwaukee, first of all, are you home and safe?
First and second of all,
Because if you're not,
check your DMs
if you're not,
we're
do
trying
not
to get you your
drive
jersey.
No, I forget to DM him, to be honest.
Oh.
That's my fault.
No.
Good
mind.
job.
Right on that. But also, you're home and safe because right now, if you're not, I don't want you to drive. I don't want you to drive.
Don't.
Jordan Love is going to sign.
The fact that you think, first of all, Jordan Love's probably going to sign this week. Within the next 7 days, Jordan Love will be the highest paid quarterback in the NFL.
Jordan Love is going to be so good. Oh my gosh. All right.
I mean, it's not great that he's going to be the highest paid, but it's the great time to do it if you're the Packers because they're so young and so cheap everywhere else.
Why not?
They should. They have the money to do it. Do it.
Other players that have changed atmospheres. Austin Eckler went to the Commanders. Not super excited about this one at all. He's older. He's full of injuries. Only had 6 touchdowns last year in a Chargers offense. Jaden Daniels is a rookie quarterback that I don't know if I feel great about having, when he's going to be scrambling a little bit as a rookie quarterback. Brian Robinson is going to be hanging out, getting a majority of the goal line carries, physical inside runner. I don't love Austin Eckler at all. Like, he's one of the guys that I'm just like, he might be on we're going to do like do not draft list.
He's gonna be on there.
Breaking news: he might be on my list. He might be on my list.
That week 1 ankle injury just ruined his whole season.
He's not a top 40 running back.
He's don't
not a top 40.
They have him drafted
that
at
offense
33, Scotty.
Oh, see, I didn't even look at that. He's not a top 40 for me.
Right.
I just don't feel good about Austin Eckler at all. Josh Jacobs went to the Packers, 26 years old still as the season starts this coming year. Led the league in rushing. By the way, I hopped off the Josh Jacobs bandwagon. I was like, I'm not touching Josh Jacobs with a 10-foot pole. He led the league in rushing, and I was like, oh shit.
This is why you don't take advice from him.
Yeah, well, I mean, he was one of the guys that I was just like, I mean, Josh McDaniels doesn't lend himself. I mean, the Raiders were trash, right? But still, I don't know how I guess I like him more in reality than fantasy when it comes to the Packers. I'm curious to see how he works out.
Want to see it happen in reality.
I want to see a little bit because I mean, you still have like, Marshawn Lloyd, who they love as a third round draft pick. They're kind of big on him. At least from what reports say, a lot of talk around him. I don't know if it's true or not. Then you throw in a little AJ Dillon, who's like, whatever. They're phasing him out anyway. So it's gonna be like a combination of Josh Jacobs, Marshawn Lloyd, kind of splitting carries. LaFleur has never given a running back more than 61% of the snaps. So I'm not sure if I feel great about his fantasy value, but I do kind of like him in Green Bay.
Would you like to know his projected line?
I hate this.
All around.
Go ahead.
His projected line is 264 attempts for 1,000 yards and 9 touchdowns.
I'll take the under on that. At least the 1,000. Well, actually, both.
What do you think, Chris?
I mean, based off of what
AJ Dillon was pretty ass last year.
Based off of what they're phasing him out. They're pushing him out. AJ Dillon might not be on any.
AJ Dillon's a great short yardage back.
Sure,
phenomenal. That dude has thighs bigger than my head, and I have a big head.
The Quadzilla.
We can see. We can tell.
Aaron Jones was big. Aaron Jones was big too.
No, he wasn't. What are you talking about?
He was kind of big.
What are you talking about? No. That's why I don't know what Green Bay's doing. They took away Aaron Jones, who was like a great combination to AJ Dillon, like a very different style, pass catching, quick, fast, like to AJ Dillon just bowls you over, and then you instead sign Josh Jacobs, who's he doesn't catch passes. He doesn't do a lot of the other things. He's a decent running. I mean, he's a good running back. He runs the ball well, but like, I don't know. That was the one hiccup the Packers, and I love what they're doing. Their team's still going to be good, but like, I don't love that signing for Green Bay.
How many fantasy leagues you guys doing this year? We're doing. We did 2 last year. We're probably gonna do 2 this year. Depends. I don't know.
35.
Maybe we do 3. Oh, your mic.
I put something in the Discord.
Just bring it close.
Is my mic bad?
Just bring it close to your.
You were cutting it out.
Hi.
You were T-painting.
You just gotta talk
Hi.
into it. You just gotta talk into it. Closer.
Just got mad about how bad of a decision that was for the Packers with Josh Jacobs.
Yeah. So Josh Jacobs, Packers, Aaron Jones, Vikings, Joe Mixon, and I think the Mixon and Diggs to the Texans is interesting too. There's a lot of layers to the Mixon and Diggs. Like Mixon,
I wouldn't touch.
I talk about boring players that produce every single year on this little preview. We're going to talk about boring players on a future show. He might make my list on boring players that just you don't really like expect to get excited about them, but yet they're productive. Like he's low-key productive. He gets volume. Hey,
All right.
Fireball, thank you for rating. Appreciate you popping in. Hope you had a great stream. Love the fact that you guys are here. Thank you. Shout out to Fireball. If you're not following Fireball, do it. So let's go back. Last 4 years, he was running back 13 without Burrow for most of the year. He was running back 8 before that. He was running back 4 before that. He was running back 11 when Burrow missed a lot of time on that year. He's now got a good offense in Houston. He's only 28. Which I mean is older for a running back, but still, he's still young enough. I feel like Stroud overshadows what the running game could be because Stroud is like the passing game. The passing game. You got Tank Dell, you got Nico Collins, you got Stephon Diggs coming in, right? You have so many really good players on the offensive.
Dalton Schultz.
So like, I feel like the running game is going to get overshadowed a little bit. I kind of like Mixon. I mean, he's been consistently productive. You don't think about him too much as opposed to like, he's not a sexy pick anymore. People think he's old.
Right.
I like him a little bit here in Houston. Stacked team.
Yeah, I mean, you got to look at it. They also added Cam Akers, surprisingly, as RB3. To answer Sarah's question, he is RB2 right now in their depth chart behind Mixon.
Dameon Pierce has he's on a missing milk carton right now. What happened last year?
Right.
Evan
But,
Singletary
I think
took
their
over.
offensive line has not been a great run blocking line. I think they're going to throw the ball a lot. I don't like Joe Mixon very much.
Well, let me ask you this. Last year, obviously on Cincinnati, he ran for 1,000 yards, 9 touchdowns. He also had 52 receptions for 376 yards and 3 touchdowns. This year, they have him for 255 attempts, 970 yards, and 8 touchdowns. So I think that goes a little bit more in line with what you're saying, Scotty, with them being a little bit more of a pass run team. So, I would still keep Mixon in mind because he's probably going to catch the ball, I would say, a good chunk. Even with the depth that they have at running back, I do think that Mixon's going to be the guy there unless something dramatic happens in that backfield.
My question is like, watching Houston last year when I did, like, there wasn't CJ Stroud is not a guy that typically targets running backs. So even if he's out there, is he getting a ton of targets like he did last year in Cincy with 1 Burrow and then 2 what's their backup that played
Jake Browning.
Yeah, Jake Browning. Who a backup's going to target a running back, maybe even the flat more because they're like, hey, I don't want to minus play. This is what I do. Where CJ Stroud, especially with the weapons he has at his disposal and a great left tackle and all that he has, is going to push the ball down the field. I mean, that's what Stroud did last year. So unless he changes drastically, I don't know if he's targeting the running back in the passing game very often.
I mean, it's crazy. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, even shifting over to the wide receiver game, knowing that you guys are saying there's gonna be a lot in the passing game. You have Diggs, Tank Dell, Nico Collins. I mean, Diggs
Go Jokes.
Diggs kind of throws a little wrench from a fantasy value. From a pure football standpoint, you love all the depth that what you have at receiver, but from a fantasy value,
Right.
Stephon Diggs kind of throws a wrench into all three of the values of all of them. Now, depending on where Tank Dell is drafted, I think he might be the best value that you get, just because I think he can be really dynamic. But like, I don't know, man. I don't know how excited I am. Depending on where they are in my fantasy football draft, I don't know how I'm approaching these three, knowing that there's going to be a lot of spreading the ball around.
Right. A lot of mouths to feed in that.
A lot of mouths
Collins,
to
Dell,
feed.
Diggs, Brown,
And Diggs
Woods,
is going to want the
Mechie,
ball a
Hudson.
ton.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
So it'll be interesting on the
At very least, at least you can draft Stroud at least. with all those
Stroud will
weapons.
be fine.
No, I want Davis Mills. Give me Davis Mills.
Long neck, daddy long neck, baby.
Yeah, boy. I think people have fallen too hard on Nico. I think Nico, right now, like the site I'm looking at, has him at 14 at wide receiver. And they have like Olave and Marvin Harrison Jr. above him. And I think they're too low. I think Nico's clearly going to be the number one, even with Stephon Diggs, even with Tank Dell back. Nico is the number one option in that offense. And I think he's going to thrive. I think he's definitely a top 10 wideout this year.
Ooh.
Fantasy Pros has Nico Collins at 17 at tier 4 and Diggs at 25 at tier 5. So, yeah, they agree with you.
They're too high on Diggs and too low on Nico right there.
Right.
And then value on Tank, depending on where he falls, right?
They got him. They got Nico Collins ahead of Cooper Kupp, Pittman, DJ Moore, DK Metcalf. So,
other
But it sounds like with all this talk on the Texans, it sounds like Dell's draft stock is going to tank.
I don't know, maybe.
Who?
No,
Tank Dells?
okay, I tried.
you tried.
Did you say Tank Dells?
He's trying to go.
I said
His stock
He was
is
trying to
gonna
use Tank's name.
Tank Dell.
Oh,
yeah,
see,
see.
sorry.
That-
Sorry,
that-
Rec, I actually did. I just missed it.
And
That wasn't on purpose.
Yeah.
now you're banned because it was a bad joke. There you go.
Yep. Get him out.
Collins will be a beast. Colts versus Texans. Pittman Jr. versus Nico
Pittman
/
versus
Diggs.
Nico. Nico is clearly above Pittman in my mind, and that's not close.
Yeah. I guess like the only
The
question
other
I'd have with that is
two, I'd probably take Pittman above Diggs. Yeah, I probably would.
So,
like the main
I
challenge
would
I
take
have with that
I
is
would
the
take
fact that-
Tank Dell above Diggs.
Yeah.
Scotty, with what they have at Nico Collins, are you in on this? 78 receptions, 1,156 yards, and 7 touchdowns.
Feels
Low or high?
That feels low. What did he do last year? What were his stats last year?
80 receptions, 1,297 yards, and 8 touchdowns.
So they're projecting he goes with a second-year QB instead of a rookie QB this year. He only played in
They're
15
expecting him to
games
go
last
down.
year. He only
Correct.
played in 15 of 17 games, and they're expecting his numbers across the board to go below.
I'm
Because
assuming that's
Diggs.
because of Diggs.
Fuck Diggs. Diggs was Diggs didn't do anything in the second half of the year. Diggs might be done. We'll see, but we've seen drop-offs at players like that. Like Diggs was dynamic the first half and just invisible outside of whining on the sideline the second half of the year.
Chivalry, thoughts on CD
Buffalo.
sitting out of camp until money comes in. Welcome in, Chivalry. First of all, who's your team and where you're from? I feel like if you've been here, sorry, but otherwise I forget. So let us know. Thoughts on CD sitting out of camp?
CD's wide receiver. I mean, he's gonna play. I don't love, and Dallas needs to. If Dallas has to choose who they're gonna pay between Dak and CD, it's a no-brainer in my mind. It's CD.
all day, every day.
I mean, CD very well could be wide receiver 1, easily. But he's definitely like a top 4 when you look at like Tyreek, Jamar, Jay Jettas. Like those are your top 4.
Right.
So CD is a monster. I don't blame him for holding out. There's big storylines in San Francisco with holdouts right now. with
Right.
two of their
It's
best
insane.
offensive players with Ayuk, and now Trent Williams is holding out. One of the best left tackles in the game, because he has zero guaranteed. Somehow he has zero guaranteed money left in his contract. I mean, he has this year guaranteed because I think they're past that point, but like no more guaranteed money in his contract. So he's holding out. It'll be interesting. I love Ayuk's game, but like I think San Francisco will not move off Ayuk this year, and just hope that and I think he'll end up playing. I don't think he gets traded this year because San Francisco's such in a this is our window, we got to win, this is it, like that they're not going to move off. Yeah, that would be idiotic to move Ayuk. Yeah. And that's where, like with Diggs, I'm like, I assume Buffalo thinks they're in their window. They were moving to trade Diggs for not a lot in return. That's got to be telling of something, right? That tells you something to another AFC team that's up and coming and was a playoff team last year. So I don't think Diggs is going to be it. I would be I'd be shocked if Ayuk, unless they get a dream deal in a trade, that if he's not a 49er this year.
Honestly, yeah, you're talking about the Bills being in the window. I think they're just one quarterback trade away from completely tanking. Like Allen and McDermott are going to be the only reasons the Bills get over 500.
That feels aggressive to me, but
I mean, they blew up the roster. They got rid of all their core pieces.
Aging pieces that weren't overall as contributing as you think. Yes.
Yeah.
Other names that have shifted teams since, obviously the offseason is, again, been a long time. DeAndre Swift, Keenan Allen going to the Bears. Keenan Allen now has a rookie quarterback that's supposed to be one of the best quarterbacks coming out of the draft this year. Now, it's going to be... We'll see. I mean, we talk a lot about quarterbacks, right? Like, what's he going to be? We'll find out. But Keenan Allen getting a little older, but I feel like is still kind of serviceable. I feel like he's still going to be decent, and we'll see what he ends up being with the Bears. I'm kind of like, I have no idea with Keenan Allen. Not really excited, not really not excited. I'm like middle of the road. I think he'll be fine. Scotty, what do you think?
I mean, I think he gets downgraded moving off of Herbert. Even Caleb Williams can be great, but like all of a sudden the Bears have a great wide receiver. You got DJ Moore, you have Keenan Allen, and then you took Rome Odunze in the top 10 of the first round. Like they have all of a sudden a great wide receiver core. How do they spread that around with a rookie quarterback? I think you're going to see some issues, and like I love Keenan Allen, and I respect how solid Keenan Allen has been through year after year. When he's healthy, he puts up crazy numbers. But moving off of Herbert and where they had a connection, I think there's going to be a drop off for Keenan. I mean, he's certainly draftable, but like for me, I used to always love getting Keenan as like, I don't know, my wide receiver. If I could get Keenan as my wide receiver 2, I was thrilled. Now he might move more to like a wide receiver 3. I think he is a wide receiver 3 flex, depending on what your league has situation with Keenan.
Yeah, and I think too, I mean, yeah, Sarah, what week will Allen pull his hamstring? Probably week 7, week 6, week 7. He'll come in strong.
Yeah, that was so sad.
He's actually been weirdly healthy though the last few years, where there was like 4 years straight where like it was inevitable he was going to get hurt. But like oddly than the last few years, he's kind of been healthy.
The more interesting one that I'm worried about or trying to feel out is DeAndre Swift, right? He's on his 3rd team before the age of 26, right? Is he good, or is that a good thing or a bad thing? Because it's like, it's a good thing if you're wanted. It's a bad thing if no one wants you. Now, the Lions got rid of him and replaced him with Jahmyr Gibbs. Eagles got rid of him and replaced him with Saquon. Now, both teams obviously upgraded their running back, but like DeAndre Swift didn't have like terrible season with the Eagles. He didn't have he was decent with the Lions, and they kind of like worked in different options. But like, I'm trying to figure out what DeAndre Swift is. Why, if he's so good and he's only 26, why do teams keep moving off him? I don't know if he's good or if he's like not good. I don't know.
Is he like a headache?
I don't
Which
know.
I haven't heard that he's a headache.
I haven't seen anything like that, but I just think like he might be the most unluckiest man in the NFL at this point.
Like,
The
Lions didn't like him.
He had 229 rushing attempts for 1,000 yards and 5 touchdowns with 39 receptions. So clearly he was utilized. I mean, it's just hard with that offense that they had, with AJ and everything, plus the rushing of Hurts. But this year they have him at RB24, and they have him for 205 attempts, 891 yards, and 6 touchdowns. So, and clearly the way that with his contract, they clearly want him to be the RB1 there. But you got to understand, I mean, I love him, but the Bears still have Khalil Herbert and Rashawn Johnson, who had their, I mean, let's be honest, ups and downs, but there was a lot of positives on this team with all the moves that they made. And then your wide receiver core gets upgraded. There's just a lot of questions for me for Swift. Like last season was RB17, and this year he's on the Bears, who've gotten arguably much better, but they got rid of Fields. So there's just a lot of questions for me with their quarterback, obviously, coming out, being drafted. So I do think they're going to rely on him, but it's just how much they're going to have to rely on him is the question.
Yeah, it's just weird. In the chat with that wide receiver, Sewell has no room for error. Yeah, I mean, he has all the tools as a young quarterback, so you want to surround your quarterback with what they have. But
I mean, let's be careful on not going overboard with Caleb Williams on either direction this year. If he's phenomenal, we'll chill. If he's terrible, let's chill. Give him some time. I think he might take some time, and drafting a running back in on a new offense with a new quarterback and new weapons, with the running backs that have been at least mildly productive that have been in your system before, makes me a little nervous. So I think around a late RB2 makes sense for me with DeAndre Swift. Joe Quill says Swift was odd man out when the Lions drafted Gibbs, and then he was the odd man out when the Eagles got Saquon. Which is true.
I would say
if you like DeAndre Swift, you're not drafting Gibbs, and you're not picking up Saquon.
The Lions did not like the Lions did not like Gibbs. Like they wanted him out as soon as humanly possible.
The Lions hated Swift.
They hated him.
100%.
They tried everything they could to not give him the ball, and it drove me nuts.
Yeah.
They traded him away
from a fourth-round
pick in 3 years.
Like if he was a guy that they loved, they would have stuck with him, and they would have saved money maybe instead of having to. Now I know there's a couple of these teams aren't paying as much as you would think for these big names, but like still, you would stick with a guy like Swift if you really felt like he was a guy that could do something for you. Swift had problems in the locker room and staying healthy, says Chairman. Chairman had firsthand experience.
Yeah, a ton of locker room stuff, and I said that earlier. I'm like, is he
just a head case?
That's probably true because the talent's there, and it's not like he was bad in either spot. But
is he the Russell Westbrook without the accolades? Like he's talented, but like he doesn't have all the accolades to go with it necessarily. He's just like, people like him for a minute and then they don't, and then they're just like, all right, let's get him out of here because he's a cancer. Maybe, I don't know.
On an after dark note, Tickle did have a good point asking about your shirt there, Devil Doc. Is sideways dick in your shirt? And I just think that's actually the Max Cock logo that's about to be released. Someone else said that's half the Under Armour logo, which could be true as well.
It is half the Under Armour.
Yes,
but that could be the Max Cock logo as well. We'll see.
It's just the way.
That's just nuts.
It's just the way it's like. Yeah, it's just the way it's thrown out there.
Listen, I'm sorry. Okay,
now,
did you scratch some of that off? Was that on purpose?
No, it was not on
It
purpose.
just happened in the wash.
Absolutely.
Now I can't unsee it. Thank you. Appreciate that.
All right, take my cam off screen. I've had enough. I'm out.
This is what you have.
And we're demonetized.
This is what you do. Some other small names here. Well, not small, but I would just say other names that move.
Yeah, it could be Max.
Yeah, they could be.
Why are you zooming in on my boobies?
We got Mike Williams going to the Jets. That's meh. Whatever. I don't know. He might get some red zones.
The breakfast sandwich worked.
Red zone catches there. I don't know. Not super excited about Mike Williams.
If he's healthy,
If he
and
Yeah.
the quarterback's healthy, and no one pays attention
Like,
to
when
him,
was-
he's a red zone guy.
When was the last time Mike Williams was healthy for a season?
Wow.
Yeah, it's been a minute. But if
he's playing the
remember.
Chiefs, start him immediately because he will catch 5 touchdowns.
Another name to keep an eye
Good to
on,
know.
radar wise, that move teams. Zach Moss going to the Bengals. Zach Moss is, I mean, think about this. First 6 weeks for the Colts with, he just had fill in duties, just trying to keep the team afloat for a little bit. Averaged 19 fantasy points per game, 4th best running back over the first 6 weeks. And then you add in a Cincinnati team that runs the ball out of the shotgun, which Zach Moss is pretty good at. You got a little bit of You got a lot of good stuff going on there with his strengths. I mean, Bengals have a good. I mean, think about it. They're a decent team. They're a decent offense. They have no proven player behind Zach Moss to challenge him. They have an improved offensive line. He's the cousin of Santana Moss. I mean, what more could you want? Zach Moss.
Ugh, that's what I needed.
That's what I needed. See?
I agree. I think he's undervalued at where he's at. I think he's. I mean, that offense that should, click with Burrow and Higgins and Chase, right?
He's a sleeper, man.
I'm not sure that Mixon was at least at the latter stages, like last year and the year prior, an elite running back this game. I think he was just a product of opportunity, perhaps, where Zach Moss might be the Spider-Man meme, where it's just like Zach Moss is Joe Mixon in that offense.
Joe Mixon.
And Joe Mixon, fantasy-wise, was pretty damn good in that offense. So,
Right.
I mean, I'm seeing right now Zach Moss at RB27. I'd certainly put him. I mean, he's higher than that. How much higher I go, I don't know, but
he's going to be a starter.
5, 6, 7 slots ahead of that at minimum, I would think.
Yeah.
Well, here's the thing. The thing that a lot of people aren't reading into is Chase Brown. Supposedly is going to be eat into his passing, the pass downs. So that for me is enough where it depends on where I'm drafting and where I'm at with my draft. But Zach Moss at round RB25, I think that's a really soft spot to start. But like you said last year, he had about 21 touches, and 98.5 yards a game last year. So I think if Cincinnati can establish the run and do a lot, that'll help as a whole with the offense with Joe Burrow and his passing. And like you said, the O-line got better. I think you're going to get great value with this guy, especially if he takes off and does outwork Chase Brown and does take into a little bit more of that bigger role for fantasy purposes. You could really see him skyrocket in fantasy.
Seen the hype on Chase Brown, but I'm like, if he was so good, why did they give him almost nothing last year? He got 44 carries in Cincy last year, and it's not like Joe Mixon was some dominant, and 15 targets in the passing game. So sometimes I caution myself with the hype. I'm like, why is this guy getting hyped so much when they didn't value him enough to get him the ball last year?
Right.
So we'll see on Chase Brown. So I still think I think Chase Brown's being overhyped, and I think
Zach Moss.
our boy Zach Moss is being undervalued in Cincy.
Yeah. So where do you put him? Do you put him at a high end RB2 then?
He's probably closer to a
mid RB2?
mid, not high, mid to late RB2. I know he's valued at 27 right now, and what I'm looking at, but I'd put him closer to early 20s.
So good value for where you're getting him.
Yeah, I would say good value for him at that point. All right, let's finish off with this last one for Scotty. Marquise Brown.
Wide receiver 1.
Here's the thing with Marquise Brown coming to the Chiefs, obviously, speedster, right? The thing with him, I'm torn with him because one, he gets hurt a little bit. He's 160. What? How much is it? How heavy is he? 165, 170 pounds. He's like nothing. How heavy is he?
There's no chance.
Anyways,
he's 165.
He's a small dude.
Go check.
I don't know.
Yeah, I'll also.
He's like
check.
my size. But the thing with the Chiefs though is they just cycle through their offensive options. There's too many options, and they don't have like one set dude. Like,
yeah, that was the problem last year when they had just so many options on offense, Chris.
He's a $180, by the way.
I'm seeing here.
This is strictly from
5'9".
It looks like he's 5'9", 180.
180. Okay,
Yeah.
so he's my size.
At 5'9", so he's not skinny.
He's literally
just short.
He's literally my size.
I think maybe you're built a little differently. But sure.
No wide receiver got more than 60% of the snaps last year. Not a single one. Which is like, they spread the ball around so much that it's just like, and they cycle in so many players that I don't know if he can be a guy you can rely on, or there's a lot of Chiefs that maybe you can't necessarily rely on from a fantasy perspective. Like, could he be a sleeper? I mean, here's the positive. He's a veteran on a Mahomes offense, so he could be a sleeper, right? So he's kind of a guy that you could take a late flyer on in the draft if you're like getting down to the, some of these areas. But like, I don't know. There's not a guy that the Chiefs haven't really put out fantasy juggernauts as of late. Mahomes was QB 14 last year. I mean, this is fantasy, right? Not how they play, fantasy wise. There's a difference. Lamar Jackson is one of the best fantasy quarterbacks.
You remove him last year. He was like top 3 QB every year in fantasy. But go on.
I'm just saying. Are you drafting him at a high end?
Mahomes?
No, Marquise Brown.
No, Brown.
Oh, I will say the side I'm looking at has him 2 spots over Rashee Rice, and I think that's them not understanding that Rashee Rice is probably playing all season, because Rice right now at wide receiver 40 is wild. Like, he should be way higher. Hollywood Brown is clearly going to be wide receiver 2, and then option 3 probably in that offense, because with Kelsey. Right. I think the offense will be a lot better than it was last year. I think we'll get back to, we had zero. I mean, there was no speed, and even our speed threats they didn't think they could catch the ball, so it didn't matter. I think with Hollywood Brown and Xavier Worthy, this offense looks wildly different in KC this year, even if those guys are decoys and just stretching the field to let a lot more underneath go on. Do I think he's undervalued at wide receiver 38? Probably. Do I think he's a flex option? Hollywood Brown's a flex guy.
Yeah, I would agree.
Jeremy has a question for you.
He's not a wide receiver 2.
Is Rice going to be out of prison in time to play?
He's not going to prison this year. Hey, if you were here earlier, Chairman, his first court date is not until December 9th, and that's not even a criminal court date. So while he will likely get suspended at some point, it will not be this year. It will not be this year.
So let me ask you this, Scotty. They haven't projected from Fantasy Pros, wide receiver 35, average drafted, 65 receptions, 868 yards, and 7 touchdowns.
That has to be them projecting him to miss games. He will. I mean, that's not even close to what he will do. He did better than that last year, and he didn't even play the first half of the year. He almost had 1,000 yards last year. So I only have an 837, and
well, this is for Hollywood. This is for Hollywood.
Oh, Hollywood. I thought you were talking Rice.
No, sorry.
Say that again. 65, 837, and what?
865, 868, and 7 with a WR2 possibility, like a ceiling.
I think his ceiling is a wide receiver 2 in fantasy. I think he'd get more than 868, but I don't hate those numbers, actually. I think those are fair.
I mean,
Could
you
he
have to
eclipse
affect
him?
for the Mahomes
Yeah.
effect, right?
Yeah, but I don't think he's gonna be. I mean, he's not gonna be option 1. Where
Right. No, we know that.
In Baltimore, and then at
Right.
times in Arizona due to injuries, he was option 1. Now he's
Right.
probably option 3 in the pass game at best, unless there's
Right.
injuries. So while I think he's gonna be great, and he's actually looked good in camp thus far, yeah, I think as option 3 in that offense, getting close to 900 makes sense.
We'll find out.
Yeah, I mean,
But yeah, I mean, we're getting to the bottom of the hour here, so I feel like that's a good stopping point here for our first edition of Fantasy Focus. We're going to be diving in to a lot more segments, one per show moving forward, I promise. And we're going to have a lot of talks going on about, all sorts of different topics, whether it's NFL, fantasy related. We're talking football here on the channel. Nobody is going to cover the NFL better than we do on this platform. I promise you. Make sure you tune in each and every single week leading up to the NFL season. And then we will be covering all the best bets. We'll cover all the previews of each week, game in, all the top games of the week. We're going to cover all of the fantasy news that you need to know to set your lineups. You name it, we'll be here each and every single time. So make sure you tune in for some football talk. It's the dog days of summer are over, ladies and gentlemen. We're here and we're talking NFL because that's on the horizon and it's coming here before you know it. It's happening. So guys, make sure you hit that follow button if you haven't already. Hit that subscribe button. All those things. Join our Discord. ActionLabSports.com is where we have all our articles. We're going to be pushing out NFL articles. You name it, we got it. So make sure you join that in the chat. Thank you so much for